Yeah, and welcome to Noble Stag Hobbies. My name is John, and I am a novice miniature painter, and I haven't been at my painting desk in far, far too long. So, to rectify that, I thought I would paint something that I have already had primed up for quite a while. Nice, kind of easy project to get back into the swing of things, and that is the Fenrisian Wolves Warhammer 40k. There's 5 of them in the box. Today I'm only going to be showing you 3 of them because I've already painted 2 of them before. If you've watched previous videos on the channel, you might have seen the 2 that I did, painted up like 2 of the very best and most special boys. To me, they look a little bit like this. So that leaves 3 remaining from the box for us to paint up. So let's see what I've done with them. The first stage, as with most minis, is priming. These ones were primed with a Rust-Oleum red-brown rattle can. I have to say it's more red than brown. It is really quite red. But this was a very deliberate and intentional choice on my part. I wanted to kind of have that really kind of warm undertone. Like, mammals are warm-blooded creatures, and so I hope that kind of having some of that undertone might kind of show through into the models. I don't know if it really worked, but that was at least the intent behind it. It was very much a deliberate choice on my part. And then when it came to actually painting on top of that, I decided not to follow the box art really at all with them, and instead I've painted all 3 wolves slightly differently, but all still in natural colours that wolves could be in the wild. So let's start with this one. So the first of the 3 wolves is what I am calling the dark brown wolf. So it started with a base coat of Vallejo model colour mahogany, kind of a nice rich brown to get us going with this one, and followed that up with leather brown, also from Vallejo. And then on the top of the head and following the ridge down the spine and along the tail, went for something a little bit darker, but still keeping in that warm kind of spectrum of browns, with a bit of Rhinox hide from Games Workshop or Citadel or Warhammer paints, whatever you want to call them. They've kind of gone through all of those names now, I think, at this point. But yeah, Rhinox hide was the kind of the darkest kind of ridge colour on the top of the wolf. The teeth, the paws, the flicks on the ears and the little whiskery bits and things like that all got a little bit of a touch of Wraithbone, also from Games Workshop, just to kind of pick those out, make them stand out a little bit more. And then the whole thing got washed with Reichland Flesh Shade, again sticking with that kind of warm brown theme and tones that we've got going on with this one. Then went back and picked out the teeth again, but you could see a bit more definition kind of within them. So I think that's worked not too bad. Also picked out the eyes with just a tiny, tiny little spot of Abaddon Black, also from Games Workshop Citadel. And that's kind of finished that one off as far as the body painting goes, and we'll come back to look at what I did basing-wise a little bit later on. On to our second wolf, what I'm calling the light brown one. This is probably the closest to the box art of all 3 that have been painted up, but it is still pretty far from an exact copy of what's on the box for these Fenrisian Wolves. On this one, I started with a base coat of Corax White from Games Workshop, hoping that we'd start to see some of that kind of warm undertone still coming through the white paint and kind of giving that effect that I spoke about when I was talking about the primer. As I say, I don't know how well that's really worked, but that was at least the aim for this one. Then I came in with some buff from Vallejo over the face, the thighs, the shoulders, and the sides, the flanks of the wolf, to give a little bit of a transition. And then there's a bit of a jump into darker brown with Rhinox hide. It's maybe a little bit too big of a leap from the white and the buff, Maybe there should have been more of a kind of an intermediate stage here. I don't really know. Or maybe I could have blended it in together a bit more neatly, but it still works. It still looks reasonably natural. I know, at least looking at my dog, okay, he's not a wolf, but there are very clear transitions between his color changes. So, it doesn't look that bad, I don't think. It's certainly not horrendous anyway, at least in my opinion. But if you guys think it looks terrible, then, feel free to let me know that in the comments. But no, I think it's all right. I don't think it's too bad at all. And then came back in again with Abaddon Black to catch the eyes. Also did a little bit on the top of the head and the ridge of the spine down the tail, just to really give that full light to dark transition over the model. And then also Wraithbone for the teeth, as we did with the previous wolf. This one I decided to wash with Agrax Earthshade, which is a little bit less of a reddish tone to it than the Reichland Flesh Shade I used on the previous wolf. And I think for this colour scheme, that's really quite well, and kind of helps to blend the whole thing together. So yeah, pretty chuffed with this one all told. So yeah, let's move on to our third and final wolf. And last but not least, we have the white wolf. So I started with some Vallejo model colour white on the legs and kind of the lower parts of the body, just to give a solid base coat. Then followed this up with Games Workshop's Apothecary White, which is a contrast paint. I thought that would maybe show some more kind of white and grey tones over the middle part of the body. I'm not 100% sure how successful this really was, but that was the aim and the intention, at least. It probably would have worked better over a different primer, possibly. Might have shown a bit more contrast, but it's turned it into a white wolf, so I can't really complain too much. That was the intention, that was the aim. So, and then the final colour over the body was a bit of Celestra Grey, also from Games Workshop, and that kind of crowned the top of the head. Again, that ridge along the back and down the tail, the top of the tail. So again, I think it's worked quite well. A nice transition between the greys and the whites, kind of underneath. So that's kind of finished it off. Once again, Abaddon Black to pick out the eyes, Wraithbone on the teeth, and I was able to leave that initial kind of red primer inside the mouth. Didn't have to do anything with that at all, and I think that's quite good. It's turned out quite nicely, which is really what we wanted. And then final step for this one was a wash with Nuln Oil, so a black wash rather than a brown. Wanted to kind of keep in the grayscale theme of this one rather than introducing browns and changing it up, muddying it up a little bit. Wanted to keep this one very much black and white grayscale. And that was why we went for the Nuln Oil, and again, I think it's pretty good. Picks out all those flecks within the fur and things like that. And so that completes the three wolves themselves, although they are not finished, just as the wolves have been painted. Wanted to finish them off properly and base them up. So this is what I did for basing. I really enjoyed basing these wolves. I just wish I had remembered to record the process, or at least take photos of the different stages of going through it, which I seem to have completely neglected for all of these models, really. I am well out of practice of making videos, it would seem. So yeah, we only have the completed finished bases to show, but I'll talk you through the process that I went through with them. So the first stage was to glue on some stones and gravel, which I just picked up from my driveway outside the house. Not too many on each base, not to overcrowd them, but just a couple, just to give a bit of kind of height variation, different textures, and look like the wolves are outside in a natural environment that they would be in. Then came in with a layer of Stirling Mud texture paste, just to kind of smear around, make the stones look like they're actually set into the earth. A little bit of a splash kind of around the paws and things like that. Make it look like natural ground that the wolves would be in. This then got a fairly heavy dry brush with Vallejo model colour Leather Brown, and then a much lighter dry brush of Buff on the top of that. and again, kind of was a bit patchier with the buff to give, again, a variation of colours and textures on the ground. And then came in with, sort of, to keep that kind of patchy, variable ground, came in with 2 different washes. There was a bit of Agrax Earthshade on some areas, and then Athonian Camo Shade, a green wash, on other areas to look more mossy, marshy, earthy, natural. Might be some like algae or mosses growing on the floor of a forest or on a hillside or something like that. And then the tufts that I added are a mixture of Games Workshop's Mordian Corpse Grass, so a couple of those onto each of those bases. And then the others, the bright green one, which is slightly taller than the Corpse Grass, and then the snow-capped one, both of those sets of tufts came from Temu, of all places. Probably don't recommend getting your hobby supplies from there, but it's cheap and they seem to work. A little blob of super glue just to make sure that they really sit down rather than relying on the cheap glue that they've been made with. But they look all right, and certainly as display pieces, I don't think anybody would question it. The snowy ones do look a bit yellow, and I think there's a lesson here. Never trust yellow snow. Never trust hobby supplies from Temu either. And then the final step of these bases was the white snow, which is Valhallan Blizzard technical paint or technical paste. Can't remember what it says on the pot. Either or. It's a Games Workshop technical paint. And yeah, I put on a couple of layers of that. The first one went on a little bit thin. Maybe I didn't stir the pot enough. Maybe I stirred it too much. I don't know. Maybe just didn't scoop out enough of the good stuff at the bottom. But yeah, got 2 layers of that on to really kind of look white and snowy, especially on the base for the White Wolf. Really wanted to look like that was in an Arctic tundra kind of environment. So really went to town with the snow on that one. Slightly less so on the other 2, but still plenty of snow so that they look like they're kind of cohesive and they belong together as a trio. And I am really, really pleased with how these have turned out. I say it's been a long, long time since I've been at a painting desk. And so it was nice to come back with something that was there, primed, ready to go, and that I could get into and kind of I had a vision and an idea for, and I think it's turned out reasonably well. If you think the same, if you think differently, please let me know in the comments things I can improve on, things I can tweak, things I can adjust, so that if I ever come around to painting more wolves or more animals with kind of different fur colours and textures on their bodies, then that's something that I can incorporate and maybe feature here on the channel in future. I've really enjoyed painting and basing these wolves, these miniatures, and if you've enjoyed watching this video, it would really mean a lot if you could give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That helps other people to see it and hopefully kind of learn along with me how to do things. And I say, if you have any suggestions or improvements that I could make, then please let me know in the comments as well. It's something I can take forward into future videos. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Noble Stag Hobbies. I kind of post bits and pieces there, share things that kind of inspire me from other mini painters and things like that as well. So yeah, if you are a social media person, if you're an Instagram person, then at Noble Stag Hobbies on there. And if you really want to support me and my hobby journey, and especially my ability to share that with you and to present it, then I have linked my Amazon wishlist in the description down below as well. This is mostly for things like better lighting, so you won't get these horrible shadows that you can see behind me, microphones, tripods. Part of the reason that there aren't many progress shots or footage of me painting these miniatures is that my mini table tripod has mysteriously vanished since I last made a video for you, which isn't particularly helpful. So yeah, if you'd like to help me out with a few supplies and improvements to this whole channel and this whole experience, then that is the place to do that. Obviously, no pressure to do so whatsoever. I feel a bit odd about asking for it, but if you don't ask, you don't get, and every little helps, but there is absolutely no pressure to do so. But yeah, the link is there if you would like to. Anyway, I think we'll leave it there for today. I have really enjoyed painting these wolves, sharing them with you, and I have already primed up and made ready a whole bunch of new stuff that I'm looking forward to getting into just as well. And I look forward to sharing that with you in the not too distant future. It'll certainly be much less of a gap between this video and the last one than it will be from this video to the next one. So we will leave it there for just now. This has been Noble Stag Hobbies. I'm John. Thank you very much for watching, and I will speak to you again soon. Happy painting.